Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. Today I don't have a guest. I just want to sit down and chat with you guys about some observations that I've seen in society, recently. So these are just some things that popped into my head and I'd like to discuss. The first item is women and men. I interview a great deal of women who are prosperous. They are doing their thing. They're following their passion. But there's one thing that I really notice. As women are making these strides in society, they're coming into their own because of the patriarchal society that we have historically had, particularly in the United States and across the world. They are grouping together. They are, making inroads into business. As a matter of fact, they're doing some great strides in business and in the world at large in science, technology, media, everything that you can name, and they are coming together as a force. They are tackling issues that not only are affecting their lives, but their families and our society at large. But there's one thing that really is sticking in my craw a little bit, and this came up recently when I was interviewing the singer Kiliani. And she said that she was having a retreat and it was particularly for women. And I was like, that really sounds interesting. Am I able to attend, or is there men who are to attend? And she graciously said, this is slated just for women, which is fine. But sometimes there's some information. There are some social things that are prevalent that can do good for both men and women, but men are excluded. So, and I go back to several episodes where I kept hearing this theme where, there's very women-centric items, very women-centric events. And if you go online, you will see that just about every month there is some sort of women's convention, Women's Day, and we've just passed out of National Women's Day or International Women's Day. But it's funny how the pendulum swings, because if you think about what is happening, men are being excluded from events that women have, or these groupings that women have, and sometimes it can really benefit men. And I know you're probably saying men probably don't want to go to it anyway, but every once in a while there might be something that might give some benefit to men. It might give them a new perspective on something. It might help them out. And I understand where they're coming from, because women sometimes don't feel as comfortable around a man or men to express themselves honestly, and they can do so in the comfort of their peers, which are other women. But when there's no alternative, there's no equal or something to placate the other side, such as, so if you're having a women's event, this directly affects women, but it excludes men. And I feel kind of weird talking about this, but it's just something that I observed, is the fact that there are a bunch of exclusionary groups for men. And, particularly right now, men have had power. And when I say men, I don't mean all men, because, as a man of color, I've been excluded from certain factions of life. Certain ceilings are glass to me, or I have to work really hard to just be considered for some things that non-men of color can acclimate to. And I think a lot of it goes toward that, but you lump all men together. Now, I'm not I'm not making any political statements here. I'm just bringing out an observation that I've seen, because there's some great information that these women have that can benefit both sides of the equation, but men are generally excluded. Now, I'm going to take this to the other side, because our dynamics in our society has changed a great deal in the last 10 years, in the last 15 years, in the last 20 years. So it's 2018. 1998 was a very different world than we experience currently. And we are making these great strides, but we are starting to do the exact same thing, or women are starting to do the exact same thing that was perpetrated on them by men, by being excluded from certain factions or groups or events. And if men were to do that, it would be an uproar. I am not judging anybody. Like I said, this is strictly an observation that I've made, because there are some women with some great information, some great insight that I would love to have counsel with. Or there are groups of women that might have some great insight or some great counsel to things that may help benefit my life and their life because of the perspectives. But I can't ascertain, or I can't have access to those groups, because simply I have this male chromosome. I am a full-fledged heterosexual male, and that is just a no-no in their groups. This is just an observation. Please, you can always go to emmettmuckles.com/contact, and you can leave me a message that, of how you feel about the subject. And I really love it when you guys leave me some information. As a matter of fact, I was pretty much slacking on my website and realized that I had a bunch of correspondence that were put forth through my contact page, and I had totally just didn't think about it, and hadn't been there in a while. And I made this thing on Twitter today that says, hey, I'm looking for some certain types of people. If you have these acumens, if you have something really wonderful that you are doing on your own, if you're following your passion, if there is something that, and I'm not talking about a job. It doesn't have to be a job, because that's what the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast is about. It's really not about jobs, because we put way too much emphasis on how we make money to survive versus what our passion is. And that's part of what the Billionaire Lifestyle is about, is you should be identifying with your passion versus your job. But that doesn't mean your job is not your passion, but quite often it is not. People have a job so that they can eat, they can have a place to sleep, they can have a home, and, just basically maintain that homeostasis, that being able to be safe, breathe, eat, those things. That's number one. Number two is communication. And this is just recently. These are just the things I have observed in our society that are starting to bug the living crap out of me. I'm not talking about the one with the women excluding men in their events and their forums, but this is something totally different. It's communication. So it's with the advent of smartphones and smart devices, and us being detached from communicating with each other in a verbal fashion and even nonverbal fashion, it is starting to decline, because I'm finding that people are conveying half thoughts as if someone already knows what they are thinking. And it's so bizarre, because I see it daily. I mean, literally daily. Now, I'm going to tell you, I live in Indiana. I live in Northwest Indiana, not too far from Chicago. Excuse me, I'll take a drink of my coffee. And it's so bizarre, because people say things to me and I ask them to explain further. Like, I really don't understand what you're really trying to ask me. If you're asking me to do a task, you're only giving me part of the information, because I have this very forward premise that I tell people when we are working together or we are trying to collaborate on something. And I say there's four basic things that I have to be accountable if you want me to be successful or if you want me to carry out a request from you. Number one, tell me succinctly and exactly what it is that you want from me. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to get? Be as descriptive as possible. Okay, that's number one. Tell me what you want. Number two is if I don't have access to the tools, or if you know there are better tools that I should use, please let me know what they are. Give me the access to the tools that I need so that I can get it done, because what I may think is okay may not be forward with you. You know, like, oh yeah, by the way, I want this done in a PowerPoint format with my logo. And here's the tools that I do that with. That's just an example. The next thing is, give me the time frame in which you need it done. And this is very important. It should be enough time for me to get it done. So you can say, all right, I need you to create me this presentation on how to start making an Android app. And I want you to use my template because it's my project. And here are the fonts that I like. Okay, cool. That's cool. And now I'm going to need this in 3.5 weeks on this particular day because I have a function that I'll be using it for on this other date so that I have time to edit and check it and make sure. Now, the last part is very critical, is let me get it done. Don't keep changing things so that I can't make any progress. So tell me what you want. Allow me access to the tools that I need to do it. Give me the time frame in which you need it by. And then the important one is let me get it done. So many times we are nitpicky, we are micromanaging that someone can't fulfill our request. I see this all the time. But that's just me. But there are some other things, just in general conversation, that people are talking to me or trying to communicate with me. And I think they've lost the art of communication. They've lost the art of transferring a conscious thought to another person or having a dialogue to get feedback to make sure that what they are saying is getting across, that their point is getting across, and that it is clearly understood. Because I learned this a long time ago. I'd say, like, as old as I am, it really hit home with me when I was working for a casino. And I was a manager at a casino. And this guy who is a good friend of mine, and we still work together today, I asked him to do something. And he said something so profound but so simple that more people should adhere to this. He said, let me repeat back to you what you said so that you understand that I understood and can comprehend what you're saying. It's so simple, but yet so powerful, because oftentimes we just go, yeah, all right, I got you, bye. Versus really checking and communicating what it is the dialogue was supposed to bring about. And, there's a lot of frustrations that go when things aren't understood, because it's perception. You can say something very clearly, very, very, very clearly, but it's not perceived by the other person as the same way you intended it. This is so very important nowadays. It's just amazing. And, and there are some other things that I've observed in our culture nowadays with responsibility. We ultimately are responsible for our lives. You may be responsible for other people's lives too. If you have children or if you have people that really depend on you, to a certain degree, they depend on you. You're responsible for them. But that's not the end-all, be-all, because ultimately they are responsible for themselves. But you may be responsible for guiding their life in a particular direction. But these are just the things that I'm observing in life. Recently I've gotten back into Toastmasters, and I am ecstatic about it because I get to listen to people. Toastmasters actually helps you to communicate better. And what I mean by that, because there's this exercise that they have that's ongoing at every Toastmasters meeting, which is they have this person who is called the Listen Master. And what the Listen Master does is this person listens for your grammatical usage, your grammatical errors, your usage of starts and stops, unnecessary words. So unnecessary words, and this has been ingrained in me. So whenever I hear someone speaking to a crowd or speaking to a group of people or two people, if they're making a presentation, I listen for these various things, such as when you're talking. And I just did one actually. Is one of those things that is not in our vernacular. It's just a connector versus stopping at the end of a thought and then continuing with another thought. Humans make these connectors. And it's so prevalent nowadays that I just can't stop hearing them. I was in a meeting the other day and this person was, and so. It was almost like a rhythm, and I just wanted to go, stop! I do it myself, except I'm conscious of it, and usually it happens when I haven't gotten my pentameter down to my core, where I own it. Now you're going to start doing it too. You're going to listen for people, and you're going to hear them go, and so, like, but, double words, things like that. This is one of those cool things that being in Toastmasters does for you. And one of the coolest things that I've seen from being a Toastmaster, and I've been an area governor, I've been a VP of PR, I've won several contests and participated in many contests, is the positive strides that people make who are immigrants to this country who don't have a full grasp of the language, how they progress so much faster once they are around people who really think about speaking. And it is a great environment. So I've talked about like some crazy things here today that are all not connected, but these are the things that have just been on my mind lately, sitting in the back and said, who do I have to talk about this with? I talk about it to the world. So that's what I'm doing on the Billionaire Lifestyle. Now, that's all that I have to rant about today. So here are some things that you can do, and I would really appreciate it if you did this. First of all, go on to Facebook, and I have a page, which is the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast page. Please go there and subscribe, follow, because ultimately, if you don't have a phone or some kind of device where you can download or share it with a friend, you can always share it there. And please share the podcast with a friend. If you think it will help someone, please, by all means, do that. Also, you can go to Spotify now. We are on Spotify. We're on Overcast. We are on iTunes. We are on iHeartRadio. We are on so many platforms. As a matter of fact, let me take a gander at all the things that I am listed on to date. And like I said, I'll give you a quick rundown of the things that we are listed on. So you can always go to Google Play. You can go to the Billionaire Lifestyle under Libsyn, EmmettMuckles.com, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio. Of course, you can go right to your iPhone if you have it. Open the podcast player and search for the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. All three words, Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. We are also on a host of others. We're on TuneIn Radio. So there is no way that you can't get the podcast, recommend it and share it to a friend. And I am always looking out for people because I really love human beings. I love life itself. And I really want to get a glimpse of how people are experiencing this world that we currently live in. Because one of the biggest things that I know about life is I see life through my own eyes. And that is a big point. And many people see life through their own eyes. The problems come about when you don't recognize that there is another vision. Someone sees it differently. Remember I was talking about that conversation when you're talking and someone perceives your words differently than you intend them? Well, life is like that too. Two people can see the very same thing and they'll perceive it totally different. It's up to you to change or to open your perspective so that you have a wisdom about how you view and flow through the journey of life. And it's always very important for you to realize how particularly special you are. We are all special because we're all like these little galaxies that are floating about this planet. I mean, we have our own gravity, we have our own pull, we have our own repulsion, we have our likes, we have our dislikes, and no two are exactly the same. So that makes us really unique. And we have this cool thing, which is called a brain, and we have these emotions that make us human. And throughout history, we've tried to negate that and try to use each other, and it's never really any good. One thing that I really would hope that I'm hoping for the world, here's my prayer for the world right now, is that our spirituality, our mental abilities actually catches up and surpasses our technology, because we are so reliant on technology right now. It is making us soft. It is making us less effective as human beings. You would think it's the opposite, but we've promoted our technology to the point where it's quite the opposite. And every once in a while, I'll go on to, what is that? TuneIn Radio? No. Whoops. I'll go on Netflix or Amazon because I choose my programming that I let into my psyche. And every once in a while, something will pique my interest, usually science fiction. And there are some things on Netflix that I've been watching. When I started watching Black Mirror and how technology has imposed itself upon a society. And then I can't think of the name of this thing. It's called Carbon something on Netflix and they had it at the CES show where they had these bodies that had no consciousness in it, and you could inflict your consciousness into this body so you could basically live forever. Carbon, I can't think of the name of the show. Let me just type it in. So I'll figure it out. Altered Carbon. That's what it is. Altered Carbon, Black Mirror. We're seeing this weird thing where technology is allowing us to live longer. And what happens with media is they plant things into your psyche of what's about to come. If you go back, back in the day to Star Trek, that was a flip phone. And, and this was like 40 years ago, 40, 50 years ago, that they were telling you things that are coming to fruition now. And we're at this tipping point where things are just going to escalate and escalate and escalate. But the whole reason I say that is that, you really should be conscious and build your psychological being out, your let me get this right, your spirituality, your whole being. Because, I say this about the Billionaire Lifestyle. It's about your Trinity. It's about your mind, your body, and your soul. And if you can get those three in balance, if you can get two of them in balance, you're way ahead of the curve. And that's why I interview various people, because I hit about things about your physicalness. I hit things, I talk to people who will give you some information who are going to enhance your physical abilities, or at least keep you working how your body is supposed to be working. I talk to people about your spirit, things that they've encountered that is slightly different, that is not in the mainstream, about how you can uplift your spirituality, uplift that spiritual consciousness. And then we get into the psychology of things. I'm still so fascinated and in love with the episode I did with Maureen McGrath. I really am proud of that episode because it's talking about a very taboo subject that is permeating our society, which is sexless marriage. At any given time, any relationship will go through a kind of a dry point. And with that dry point, it can wreck a marriage. And what couples typically do is we don't talk about this. We'll just try to figure it out. And it can ultimately damage a relationship. But as I'm talking to you, I want you to go through and peruse the library that we have, or I have, put forth. And when I say we, because I interview some really awesome guests and give you some great information. And the whole point of me interviewing people is that somebody out there is going to identify with something that I'm saying, and it will benefit your life. So this is why it's very important for you guys to listen to it, because you can share it, because it's not just me saying things. It's other people giving their experience. It's other people giving you direction about life and about what they've experienced, so that you can open your consciousness, because you are a billionaire. And I'm going to show it to you I'm going to tell it to you in a math way. So your parents at some point were in the midst of procreating, and it hit the mark. One cell met another cell, so two cells came together. So I literally did the math, I did the square root of 2 out to 30. So by the time that you were 30 days old inside your mom, you were a billionaire, because you were constituted about 1 billion cells. I think it was like 2 billion cells. So from there, you just escalated more and more and more. So now you're like 4 trillion or 40 trillion cells within your body. And that's just what constitutes you. That's not even your gut flora. That's not even your thoughts. That's not even your emotions. So you're rich beyond means. And as a human being, which can do rational thought, you need to really hone in on yourself and know how wonderful and special of a creature you are. You are a spiritual being, a different dimension. You came down to here to live in this physical plane, to have this physical experience. And don't limit yourself. You have a wonderful brain. This is what human beings can do. We can think of something in our head, literally see it in our head and bring it to fruition. We can build it out. We can find a way to make it where it's a physical, tangible item that your thought you can now share with someone else, and they can see, feel, smell, touch, whatever it is that started out as a thought in your brain. Just think how powerful that is. Man, I get excited when I think about it. I hadn't intended for this to be very long, but it seems like this has gone on for about a half an hour. So I want to just thank you guys. I often want to just give thanks, and I do that quite often. I give thanks for my wife. I give thanks for my ex-wife. I give thanks for my children and my family and my friends, my job, my health, my car. Every little thing I give thanks for, and I also give thanks for you, because if I was just floating out in space and I had all the power in the world, I would want to be with someone. I would want to experience and see what it's like from another perspective. And that's all I'm trying to say. But that's my rant's over. Remember, when you go to the mirror, look into your eyeballs, step back and look at your face. Look at how beautiful it is. You may not think it is, but someone does. So why don't you? Appreciate yourself. Really appreciate yourself. Wiggle your fingers. That's a miracle. You don't even know how you really did that. You just start wiggling your fingers and you can pick something. It's the little things that count. Appreciate that. Appreciate yourself. And don't be so hard on yourself, because I am hard on myself sometimes. And I just have to let go. Let it go. Give it to the universe. Give it to God. And figure out what you want. Remember, love yourself and love others as you would like to be loved. Till next time, peace.